Hello, and welcome back. Gonna bring you a quick video here about surviving against caster comps, and this is applicable for anything with a caster in it, from like caster melee to double caster, more so for double caster. Just gonna be kind of explaining how you can avoid damage, play against things, and how you can disrupt the way they want to be setting up in their type of gameplay. This is going to be a quick one, and I apologize for not posting as frequently as I did. I got really busy over the weekend, but this week I'm going to be trying to bang out a lot of videos and get into a series where I'm going to be explaining the basics of each class and spec in terms of what they're trying to do, uh, how it's done, how to counter it, and what sort of comps that they go with and things like that. So hopefully that'll give a sort of something that everyone can go through quickly and give you a lot of information on classes that you're not necessarily that well versed with and stuff like that. It should help out quite a bit because knowing how a class functions is a good way of being able to beat it. Okay, so we'll get into this game here where we're going up against Affliction Lock Boomy, and here the CC chains aren't as long as they could be for certain comps like Warrior Mage, but it's still trying to stop ways of them getting through. So there, what we can see is I did something that I would normally advise against, is using a lot of closes at the beginning, but I did that because I want to stop the gate from being able to be set up, and then he'll only be using his port. And we don't necessarily need the double charges against a lock because we decide to go the lock because he's fairly stationary. And by stopping the gate, we actually stop a huge amount of his kiting and the ability for their team to move around. So what we're trying to stop is them being able to control the game, and a big step is doing that with the gate. And so what we're looking at essentially doing here is stopping any CC chains that they have and stopping their sort of ramping up of the game. Now, if this means going in line of sighting, which you see I often, in this game you'll see me leap back a few times to try and do it, to go line of sight so my healer can catch us up, or we're trying to stop CC chains by me either reflecting cyclones back on people to control the game, or kicking fears and making sure that we keep UAs down, and also intercept the Holy Paladin when he's going in for extra CC. Because often you have teams which will use the Hodge and be trying to use that on your healer to confirm CC, like Warrior Mage Pally, or the Pally will run in for a Hodge to try and get polymorphs out of it. And if you stop those Hodges, or you pressure the Pally every time he comes in for a Hodge, then you're going to be in a better position to control their team, stop these CC chains coming out, and you're less likely to lose, because where there's more CC and the control is really necessary, that's where that team functions and sort of excels. And that's often what happens with casters, because they're not like a huge momentum, they don't chase that much, they swap a lot, they get a lot of CC out. Stopping those CC chains is a really crucial aspect to it. So we'll continue here. We just stop the gate, and we're pulling in the Pally for a first grip shockwave. We mess that up a little bit. Well, I messed it up a little bit because I didn't get his pet in as well, but these are fairly late night games, so I make a couple of mistakes, but we still managed to win this one. And we're just trying to keep the Pally in, keep these UAs off as much as we possibly can, just to reduce damage, because if we get far behind and we stay out in the open and we let healer get CC'd, it's going to be really bad. So they're cycloning me, because they tried to go out DK originally, and then they end up swapping to me. And we get wall, we get a lot of stuff, we get bop, and this paladin's not running melee wings. So what we see here is me starting to take a huge amount of damage. I actually go D-stance and end up staying there for pretty much the rest of the game. I start peeling back because I think the monkey's going to want me to go, and I think about leaping behind the pillar, which is really good. Like, leap is a huge defensive cooldown for warriors now. If you look at it, it increases your armor, increases your chance to parry by 40% if it's maxed, and you can also just use it to leap behind pillars and run around. Also really important, but also really good closer. So you need to make sure that you're using it properly defensively. You can use it to leap and stop CC, like you can leap onto a trap, or you can try and do that. It's really difficult to do, or leap and kick and things like that. Let's see we see here. It's kind of an awkward scenario to be in. If I didn't have a lot of healing on me, and I wasn't in a good position because I'm in defensive stance. I still have reflection. I still have parry. I still have rally. And at the moment that we're getting a lot of CC into our monk, so we need to stop these continuous cyclones as a means of stopping the pressure. But what we're also doing is we're pressuring the affliction so he can't really get damage out. And we know that he's just popped his wall and they're kind of in defensive mode. So we're in a better position so we can keep on this. We don't necessarily need to stop that. What our monk can do is essentially just try and avoid the next one, or if he's going to get, he still has his trinket. So he's always calling out, he's saying, oh, I have this is what I have. He's letting us know, like, if we're okay, if we need to pop anything, which is really crucial for these teams, because if you start layering stuff, you're going to lose pretty quickly. But that's the same for any other team. So we just stay on this warlock, and we're still just trying to set up these things around here. I keep the fear because I want it to keep pressure up. We get a stun, which reduces the boomy damage and also the warlock damage. We get trinkets. Layering on the sharpened blade just to really keep him on, and looking at it, getting in those grips. We should have. I didn't have a shockwave there because I'd used it before to reduce damage from the boomy, which is really important to do. Because what we're bearing in mind is here, like, we have a lot of rot from the lock, but we also have a lot of rot from the boomy as well as his single target damage with full moons and other stuff like that. So that's what we're mainly looking at. So we can look to reflect those, we can look to kick those, we can look to CC, or we can look to line. Often we go towards looking to line and extending. We extend the lock's range so he can't get any more damage on me, and we try and do that for the boomy a few times. And mainly, additionally, we put a lot of pressure on the pally so he can't go in for Hodges. This is stopping the CC, and like whenever they try and walk towards getting it, we're pressuring two of their players, because you have pally who's going to be using, often will sack the warlock. So when he sacks the warlock, he takes the damage that I'm dealing to the warlock, and because I'm holding my closes so that I can get in and out if I'm in danger, I'm just going to stay on the warlock and damage the pally through him, while the DK goes and pressures the pally so he can't necessarily kick, which is going to cause them to fall behind. So here, you're always going to end up having to leave one person free casting almost, and you need to make that decision as to like what you feel okay with leaving it. So it's, for example, like if you're going up against God Comp, which is Frost Mage, Shadow Priest, and you decide to go the Mage, which is always the better option because it's how you stop all of like a large amount of polymorphs. You're going to have a lot of Shadow Priest damage out, which means that your healer is going to have to keep keeping up with the spells, or you're going to have somebody kicking as many vampirics as you can, or getting CC onto the priest, because he's not going to be a major target. And if you start targeting him, it's going to waste your damaging abilities, and it's going to be wasting potential CC that you can be putting on the healer. So when you're going up against these teams, you need to bear in mind that one of them is going to be doing a lot of damage. And your best way of mitigating that is to be able to line of sight at times, or just kick whenever you can. And just be aware that that's going to happen. And there's nothing that you can really do about it. You just need to make sure that you're choosing the correct target. So for the most part, going on a lock is really good because you stop UAs, so you can dispel a lot more in this scenario. Because if we went onto the boomy here, the boomy is going to be able to get his damage out anyway, and because he doesn't have to cast his dots, he only has to cast his full moons, and then he'll eventually just juke us out. Whereas if the lock is left open, he's going to cover us in UAs. It's going to be really difficult for our monk to heal. And then we're eventually just going to flop over by being hit with a really big full moon. So we'll continue on here, kind of run through a couple more reasons why I managed to reflect that Cyclone there, because he's trying to, like, Cyclone means so he can peel the DK off their pally, and they're trying to get offensive here, because they were previously defensive. We're still waiting for our cooldowns to come up, and we're staying back on here, removing some, trying to stop some dots and putting some pressure on. Now we get Bop, and then they go in for the Hodge, but like what they don't do here is, so we see that the pally went in for the Hodge, so we immediately start trying to pressure the pally in a bad position. He put the Bop on the lock, so the lock's fairly fine, so he decided I'm going to bop the lock, and I'm going to run in for the Hodge. Now, so what they would have wanted to do was try and get Cyclones out of that and start putting pressure on me, but so we end up putting down our AMZ, which is going to essentially reduce any damage because of the stun, because we don't want our monk popping his trinket, because if he pops his trinket, then he's going to end up, he has the potential of sitting a very long CC chain. So as long as the trinket's there, we have a get out of jail free card, and you kind of want to hold it until you're like, oh, I need to use this, because if you use it randomly for not like a big deal, say if you trinket and then you bubble somebody when you didn't need to, it's going to be really, really awkward, and the other team's going to know that and exploit that. So we're just pressuring the lock. We get kicking the UAs to stop damage, and we're in a completely fine position now, just dealing with this, trying to get our setups even more. So what we learn here is like really just like keeping the pressure on and being okay to peel back if we need, and also trying to always tie in this healer so they can't really gain control of this game. This healer needs to always be behind, their DPS always needs to be behind, so they need to play defensively instead of, you don't see this lock ever getting fears out. I mean, it's going to DR if the Boomy's cycloning, but the Boomy is also trying to cyclone us and just peel and deal damage as best as he possibly can. So by keeping them out of control of the game, we keep ourselves in a very, very good position. You see what ends up happening is out of the Hodge that we had the Paladin run before, instead of cycloning our healer to get pressure on us, they're cycloning our DK as a means of peeling. And we can stay out because we know that we're in a good position healing, we have trinkets, we have defensive cooldowns to use, and they're still just trying to peel with everything that they can. And then they swap out the cyclones onto our monk, which starts us getting into a pretty difficult position here because they're actually getting the CC out. Splitting a little bit, I decide to go back to the lock to get more pressure until the monk tells me that I'm in trouble. So I leap back and run towards him. I'm toying with going line of sight, but he heals me up pretty quick and he says I'm fine, so I go back out. Now we see that we're trying to keep this Paladin locked down and in a crap position as much as we can, getting hamstrings on him, and always going back to that priority target, being the lock, and trying to communicate. Now see, the kick goes out there and then into clones, and my monk has to trinket, but I pop everything and go line of sight as a means of staying alive, and try and peel back to him to just get healed up. Here it takes away most of our pressure, but instead what could have happened there is if I just popped defensive cooldowns and not actually come back behind these into line of sight, out of line of sight of the 2 DPS, this Hodge probably would have killed me because I would have been slowed and wouldn't have been able to come out, because here we see that my Die by the Sword and everything else has fallen off, and that helped to mitigate the large amount of damage I took before. So now I'm back here with the monk, so when our monk comes out of this full Hodge, he'll be able to heal me up, and I can put some pressure on this Pally, kind of hold him here for a bit longer. I get healed up, and our monk comes out of the stun, completely fine, and they start trying to move cyclones onto him, but I've already been topped because I went line of sight, stayed there until I was fine, and wait until now I've got reflection up and everything. And we start pressuring this the Pally, we get the bubble. Notice it late, so I waste a leap, which can be a little bit dangerous, but we're in a really good position here. The Pally's just trying to stay away from us, and this is where we start putting some real pressure in. And he's constantly trying to cyclone us off, and they don't manage to get, like, he can't peel hard enough. So in this scenario, what we're seeing is we're ooming the Pally because we're dealing a lot of damage and we're just stopping them from killing us. This is really important for keeping on top of the spells for rock comps, and just if you're playing against a bursty version of this, say if you're playing against like Frostmage Chaos, like Frostmage Destruction Warlock, or you're playing with people who are going to be basing around bursts like Arcane Mage Fury or something like that, what you need to bear in mind is that you need to stop the CC chains, but it's even more important to be leaping and kiting massive cooldowns. So we see with when we're playing in this game here, we're looking for the full moons and things like that as a means of watching out and kind of peeling back, and knowing whenever there's going to be CC out that we can't stop, that's when we need to be peeling back. The only time I actually left behind a pillar and stopped is because I knew that our monk didn't have trinket, so I had to be back there. I popped everything I could, and then the next setup we win. because we're both getting in a kind of awkward situation. So I hope that was helpful. It was kind of a fairly rough one. I'm going to get on to, as I said before, videos about each individual class. I'm going to do one a little bit about about macros and like what's good, what's bad. Just kind of cover a basic one that should be up today as well. So it should be a 2-video day. I appreciate you all, and hope it was helpful, and see you next time. Thanks. Hello there, and thanks for watching my video. Make sure to subscribe if you like what you see, and like if you liked it, dislike if you don't. Please comment to let me know what you want to see in the future, and make sure to come tune in and watch me on Twitch. I'm live from 12 a.m. or 12 midnight GMT for normally about 6 hours, playing a whole bunch of games. Hopefully I'll see you there.